There's a debate in gaming that never actually ends. Not because nobody has an answer, but because everyone's arguing using a different scoreboard, and they don't even know it. You've probably had this argument yourself or watched it happen in a comment section. Which game requires the most mechanical skill? Some say Rocket League, others say Geometry Dash, and someone else might say Starcraft. And honestly, they are all right. But that's not the problem. The problem is, nobody can actually compare them. One is controlling a car in 3-dimensional space, one is a 2D platformer, and one is a top-down strategy game. You can't really put those on the same ruler, so maybe the question we've been asking is the wrong one. Instead of which game is the most mechanical, what actually makes a game mechanical in the first place? What are the fundamental ingredients that every one of these games are built out of? The fundamental components of mechanics fall under something we can call micro, the execution layer of a game, and it's made of 3 senses: vision, hearing, and touch. Each one is big enough to be its own breakdown, but today we're isolating just one of them: touch. So, what makes a game physically mechanical to play? There are 3 fundamental components under touch. The first is the control system. Not all input devices are built the same. Mouse and keyboard, controller, steering wheel, tablet, and a touchscreen are all completely different input devices. So how do we standardize something this messy? Every control system breaks down into 2 types: binary and analog. Binary has 2 inputs: tap and hold. Tap causes a direct instant outcome, like jumping in Flappy Birds or flashing in League. Hold causes a continuous outcome, like flying in Jetpack Joyride or holding space to charge a jump in Jump King. Analog is more layered. It has an input type and a mapping, and the mapping is where things get interesting. The input types are positional, which is moved across 1 or more axes. A Wii remote can move across 3 axes, a mouse can move across 2, and a volume slider across 1. Rotational inputs. These can be rotated across pitch, yaw, or roll. For example, like a VR controller with 3 dimensions, a trackball in 2 dimensions, and a steering wheel in 1. And pressure input. These are compressed by force. Think a pen tablet or a gas pedal. Now for mapping, there's actually 3 types of them. Relative mapping is that the output continues from wherever it left off. For example, lifting your mouse and then setting it down. The cursor keeps going from where it left off. Absolute mapping is when the output is locked to a fixed position, like a tablet stylus or a steering wheel with a fixed tire angle. And lastly, continuous mapping. The output runs on its own, usually by velocity. An example is an analog stick that keeps the cursor moving as long as it's tilted. Now, why does this matter? Because mapping tells you what's actually optimal for a given task. In a 2D precision game, a 2-axis absolute position device, like a drawing tablet, is the theoretical optimum. And that's because, unfortunately, the mouse has something called rotational drift, and there's a simple experiment you can do to see this effect. If you go on a drawing app and you swipe your mouse left and right while keeping your eyes completely closed, you'll realize that your cursor has drifted even though in real life your hands are in the same position. And you can see the comparison between the mouse and the tablet. In a 3D first-person precision game, the optimum would technically be a 2-axis absolute position with 1 absolute rotational axis in yaw. Obviously, this device doesn't exist. So you're left choosing between a 2-axis relative position device and a 2-axis continuous position device. And these 2 tools optimize for opposite situations. If you're trying to track a target that orbits you endlessly, continuous position wins. If you're trying to flick it instantly onto a target that just appeared, relative position wins. And once you have this vocabulary, you can actually quantify a piece of hardware. But there's actually another component in micro, and it's much more subtle. And it's called layout. It's basically how the inputs are physically arranged on the device. For example, you can spread WASD apart on the keyboard and the game gets technically mechanically harder. In video games, this rarely matters since people rebind keys freely. but in real-life games, it's much more apparent. Bop It is a great example of a game that does this. All the inputs are spread apart to add complexity, but if the buttons were all next to each other, the game would technically become much easier. But here's the catch. Measuring the hardware only tells you what's possible. It doesn't tell you what the game actually demanded of you. So there's actually one more component in Micro: game design. This is the layer on top of the hardware that can actively raise or lower physical mechanical complexity, and it splits into 3 categories. The first one is a constraint. What does the game force you to do? The first constraint is timing. This is the window in which you have to register an input, like tapping at the exact frame in Geometry Dash, or holding and releasing precisely in Jump King. The second constraint is accuracy. For binary inputs, this is testing which key has to be pressed. This is kind of like QuickTime events. But for analog accuracy, this tests how exact the position has to be, like a giant forgiving target versus a tiny pixelated target. And the last constraint is order. The inputs have to land in the correct sequence. The best example is typing. The order of the letters that you press matters. Another example are fighting game combos. If you get the order wrong, the action doesn't register. Next, we look into the second category: opportunity. This is what happens in the downtime of a game. And there's 3 kinds of opportunistic action. The first one is informative action. This is an action that gains you information. For example, like checking the scoreboard or checking the map. Five Nights at Freddy's is built almost entirely around this. The game never forces you to check the cameras, but on the hardest difficulty, not checking becomes the losing move. Next is productive action. These are actions that move you towards a better state. Think organizing your inventory, crafting items, creating troops, or repositioning. You can think of productive action as preparing you to the actual constraint. But there's also a third type of action that I want to talk about, and this is called redundant action. This is action that serves no function in the actual game state. For example, someone that's flicking onto their teammate's head in spawn, or someone spam clicking to warm up. Another great example is early game Starcraft fidgeting. It serves a real purpose in terms of rhythm or warm-up, but it does not change the state of the game, so this does not count towards mechanical complexity. And the third component of game design is total unique action. How many genuinely different actions exist? Type Racer sits at one extreme. Every single input does something unique. Osu, on the other hand, sits at the other. Z and X both just click the circle, so it counts as one unique action. Now here's the interesting part. All 3 of these, constraint, opportunity, and total unique action, get multiplied by pressure. Speed, how fast the inputs must be executed, like jitter clicking or world record typing speeds. Sustain, which is how long the inputs must be sustained, a 45-minute match versus a 30-second typing prompt. And simultaneous, how many constraints and opportunities you're juggling at once. Like, are you moving, aiming, and shooting at the same time? Or are you driving, flipping, and rotating at the same time? Now that we've explained all 3 components in physical mechanics, we can finally take the ruler we just built and actually run it over the games people fight about. And we're going to take into account the highest level of each game. Geometry Dash has very high timing, none in accuracy, none in order, very low total unique action, none in informative action, none in productive action, medium sustain, and very low simultaneous. Almost the entire mechanical load sits on one design, frame perfect timing. But I'm also gonna guess from a hunch that Geometry Dash will also test visual mechanics far more than any other game. CS2 has medium timing, such as when you counter-strafe or b-hop, very high accuracy because you have to aim, very low order, medium total unique action, very low informative action, medium productive action, high speed, high sustain, and medium simultaneous action. Rocket League is also a very interesting game to look at, so I asked Coach Luke on his thoughts as a KBM player.
It's like I say, for a casual person, the consistency, the total unique action, and the speed is all very high, but for a pro player, timing and simultaneity are definitely the highest, but you could still argue that the other 3 are still pretty high, depending on what game you're comparing it to. Honestly, for me, it's definitely a fight between simultaneous and timing. especially for at least KBM. Normally, when turning, or for example, when flying, you can, like, if you look at the left, just to fly as precisely as possible, I'm tapping A and S. And depending on how precise I want to be, I might tap it even faster or even slower.
But I also asked Coach Stolen and pro player Sosa as a controller player.
I do think it's worth noting, like, the timing incorporated into the game also is what makes the mechanics really unique, because you could perform the same action that you do, like, for example, like single jump and then try to aerial and go for the ball. However, if you take too long to do so, you're going to lose your flip. So, like, timing matters a lot, and I think that's, like, really big in Rocket League.
So then I asked about one of Rocket League's most difficult mechanic, the Psycho.
A Psycho, I don't think any of us could do it on command, because it really is that hard.
It's like you gotta be really precise with your touch, because like most of the times, if you just don't do it right, the ball will go either really slow, or you can just like even hit it towards your net, you know.
The timing this is taking is crazy, because I need the proper momentum going to this ball. I have to hit it on the exact, like, this exact part of the wall for me to actually follow and get a good hit at the net. Then I have to read this bounce. I have to boost on the way there, feather my boost. I have to angle my car to actually meet the ball to the point where I'm going from the bottom right corner all the way to their net, full field, and I meet it, and then I go straight in. So it's really, really difficult to execute. It's not something that you can see often.
It has very high timing, medium accuracy, low order, medium total unique action, medium informative action, low productive action, medium speed, medium sustain, and very high simultaneous action. Starcraft 2 is a very unique case as well. So I asked Starcraft 2 coach Lorimbo on his thoughts.
When I say people think that Starcraft is very hard, but often enough they kind of miss it, is because, with the exception of maybe, let's say, accuracy, which if we count the button can kind of be on like medium high or high, you can say that in the constraint element, overall the game is quite easy.
Right.
Accuracy, medium high. Order also, like, not even medium on it, like low or medium at the very most. And so this kind of shows what I was saying at the start, that people often think of StarCraft like, as a game that's very hard on the left, but it's actually really hard on the right. Okay, so speed, just to be clear, includes the mouse, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, it's either high or very high. I think it's only high. Because when I think of very high, I'm thinking like something pure speed, like typing. Whereas like there is no other metric. You are testing how quickly you are, right? So that's like the pinnacle of the speed in my head.
It has very low timing, high accuracy, medium order, high total unique action, very high informative action, and very high productive action. It also has high speed and very high sustain, and high simultaneous. The really cool part about this is that you can directly see, based off of what a game tests, what are the trade-offs that tend to occur. Like for example, in Osu, if the circles were the size of those small balls in aim trainers, tapping speed would inevitably fall down. Or if Geometry Dash had an extra unique action, like ducking, this could also affect the speed as well. The cool thing is that we see these trade-offs in real-life sports as well. The simplest example is long-distance running versus sprinting. Both are trying to get to the finish line as fast as possible, but the long-distance runner is going to be running at less speed compared to the short-distance runner. And I suspect you can even interpolate these trade-offs in game design. But this is where the framework stops being a scoring tool and starts being a design tool as well. Because every one of these components can be dialed up or down independently, and League of Legends might be the clearest example of a game that deliberately spreads these demands. If you want a champion that tests timing, you have someone like Gangplank or Riven. If you want to test accuracy, Ezreal is built entirely around skill shots. If you want to test order, Hui's entire kit is basically that. Every single combination is a different ability. If you want to test informative action, Jungle as a role or champions like Twisted Fate or Shen is a perfect example. If you want to test productive action, you can play someone like Ivern to set up your camps, or someone like Yorick to split push with a Maiden. To test total unique actions, you can have something like support champions juggling multiple active items. And if you want to test speed, any AD carry can kind of fit into this, but also someone like Yasuo. And I think this can even span into why certain games feel like they're missing certain types of mechanical components. But that only covers one of the three senses, touch. Vision and hearing are still completely unmapped. I don't know what they will look like, but I can't wait to find out.